Good morning, everyone. You're listening to TDGB Bookmakers video number 88, the Madrid Mariposa Murder Mystery, which is book 3 in my Marsh Mystery series. If you are going to find a novel, the first thing you have to do is write the novel. This can take anywhere from a few days to a few years. In this case, it took me about 3 months. That's the longest part of making a novel. And then you have to print it in such a way that when you fold the signature together, page 2 follows page 1. This is easily done when you get an imposition program. This activity is called imposition. After printing and making sure all the pages are in order, you have to fold it. After you fold it, you have to determine where you want to sew it. So you put in holes in the signatures, usually an even number, 4, 6, or 8, usually 4. It depends on the size of the book. Then you sew the signatures together, and when everything's sewed together, you glue up the spine and you add headbands, mull, and a spine leaf, which separates the spine from the book cover, which makes it easier to open. Later I'll talk about making the cover and casing in, but now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story of this book, which is about 56 pages and called the Madrid Mariposa Murder Mystery. Mariposa, by the way, means butterfly. The main characters of my Marsh Mystery series are Joe Marsh from Seattle and Carmen Marsh, a woman he meets in Sativa, Spain when he's on a case. This first Marsh mystery is called the Battered Briefcase Case. After they solve the murder in Sativa, they don't feel comfortable living there because the murderer escapes, so they move to Seville, where they have another case called the Dry Watermill Case. Once they solve the murder in Seville, the police suggest they leave. And after Seville, they move to Madrid, where Carmen's brother runs a restaurant. One of his employees is accused of killing her husband and uses the brother's pistol. Well, the brother is in trouble and the employee is in trouble, and Joe and Carmen investigate what really happened. In their investigation, they discover that the employee did not kill her husband. In fact, her husband is not dead. There's a conspiracy or cover-up as to who died and who did the killing. That is what Joe and Carmen discover, all in a compact 56 pages. Now, back to making a book. After the mull and headbands and spine leaf are put on the spine of the book, I attach the end papers. Usually the end paper is larger than I need, and then I cut it down to size after I glue the end papers to the text block. The order doesn't matter, but after I attach the end papers to the text block, I make the cover. In making this book, I noticed that I had a lot of scrapped leftover book cloth, and I didn't want to waste it. So rather than cut a solid piece for the cover, I made 3 pieces: the spine piece and the front and back covers. I made the spine first because once the spine piece is made, I can put the front and back covers on more easily. I cut out the book boards, which are recycled files, and then I attach the book cloth to the board. In this case, one side of the book cloth is flushed with the book board because the spine piece is going to cover up that particular area. Recently, I've been using a spacer. Before using spacers, I used to measure the distance between the spine piece and the cover. This was meticulous and prone to error, so I went out to a hardware store and bought an 8mm wide piece of wood. This is what I use as a spacer. And as it turns out, 8mm is quite fine for most of the books I make. I use 2 spacers, one for each side of the spine, which makes sense, doesn't it? When attaching the book cloth to the book board, I put a 15 millimeter edge around the cloth so that there's overlap so I can wrap it around the book board. I use 15 millimeter primarily because the rulers I use are 15 millimeters wide. And it's perfect to organize and straighten and make sure everything is aligned if you're using a ruler as a spacer. When I glue up the book cloth onto the book board, I glue both the book cloth and the book board for a more secure connection. At this point, you have two parts of a book. You have the prepared text block and you have a cover. You have to get these two connected. And the way I do it is, of course, I glue up one side of the end paper and attach it to the book cover. This requires glue, speed, and accuracy, which is why I'm sorry I didn't film it again. But the end result is a good book that is securely attached. Now, in order to show the front of this book, I put on a red triangle so the reader can know which way is the front. In a previous book, The Lonely Izakaya Down a Quiet Street, I put the title on the front of the book. I did not have time with this one, so I did not. But I did want to indicate where the front of the book is, so I put on the red triangle. And that's how I basically make a book, except for the casing in part. Sorry about that. Each part takes a little time, and a little time, so the entire process takes quite a few minutes. I would say if I were quick, I could probably make one in 3 hours, but I usually don't do it all in one sitting because I have a life. And life sometimes interferes with what you really want to do. In this speeded up version, you can see the 3 pieces of book cloth, the left and right covers, and the spine piece. And one scrap of paper wasn't long enough to cover the entire book, so there's an additional piece at the bottom part, so it's a little bit more complicated than just gluing one book cloth to the book board. But it's more fun. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again soon. Please subscribe. Take care.